McGrath for the win for the Volunteers. From 40, on the way, knuckleball. He got it!
For anybody who is out here telling me that this slate is not strong enough, I'm going to tell you that something is bound to happen with a top 10 team going on the road. Welcome in. I am Colin Bashnagel. You can find me on TikTok. Bash the CFB Show is where you can find me. You can also find me on X or Twitter, whatever you want to call it, Bash_CFB. And then finally on Twitch, I live stream here. I will respond to comments, respond to my good old buddy Balo for the video last time, because guess what? Your opinion, my opinion, doesn't matter. Whoever's opinion it is, with a discussion, it equals a community, and we are trying to build a big old college football community. So without further ado, let's preview week 9, because we got a huge week ahead with some big time games. Kansas on the road at number 5, Oklahoma. All right, Oklahoma is a 9-point favorite. Jason Bean is going to be the starter still, just like he has been for a very, very long time with Kansas this season. Still no Jalen Daniels healthy for this Kansas team. Now, Devin Neal has been a really good running back, and the secondary can play fantastic. So the focus for Oklahoma needs to be able to run the ball. The thing is I haven't looked at Oklahoma, their running backs, their run game with the running backs being able to run the ball. It's only when Dylan Gabriel adds an element with his legs that you could see this Oklahoma team really pull away. Now, I have this flipped, and I think that's why I paused here. It's Oklahoma at Kansas. And last time they were there, it took a pretty thrilling victory. And keep in mind, this wasn't a 5-2 Kansas team. This was a Kansas football team that was still struggling, and they were rebuilding. And Jason Bean was actually the starter for that game. And they gave Caleb Williams and that Oklahoma team everything that they could handle. Remember, they were just saying, hey, if you're on campus, our gates are open. Just come in. They didn't even charge admission in that second half. And they flooded the stadium, the students at Kansas. So the Jayhawks are going to be up and ready for this game. Jason Bean, is very familiar with Oklahoma in this sense. And again, I don't think Oklahoma's strengths are going to be able to expose Kansas. Call me crazy, but this is a top 10 upset that I'm going to be taking. I'm taking Oklahoma to get upset against Kansas off of a bye week. The last time we saw this Kansas team, they lost at Oklahoma State. I think Kansas gets it done in this game. I'm going with Kansas to win overall, about 31-28. Florida State on the road at Wake Forest. Some people calling for the upset here. Kirk Herbstreit is one of them, putting it on upset watch. The thing about this is this Wake Forest team on defense is absolutely horrendous, and I don't think they're going to really be able to do anything against Florida State's offense. I think Florida State's going to put up a bunch of points. But I do think Wake Forest keeps it interesting for a very long time, and this noon slate is way better than people expect, with this game being a little bit competitive. And then, of course, Kansas and Oklahoma. I already picked Kansas to win. I'm picking Florida State to win by a couple of scores. I'm going to take Wake Forest to cover, but slightly. Let me go with Florida State winning this game by a score of like 48-27. No, actually, that would be Florida State covering. Would you look at that? Georgia, Florida, we get this rivalry game, and quietly sitting there at 5-2, one win away from being bowl eligible is the Florida Gators in year 2 under Billy Napier. Now, this team, outside of the win against Tennessee, has not been able to run the ball whatsoever. They need to be able to find their run game against this Georgia front for them to have a chance at winning. Montrell Johnson, Trevor Etienne, they both have to play really well. And then again, Graham Mertz also has to play rather efficient. He has had too many turnover-worthy plays, but other than that, he has been completing at a very, very high clip for Florida. Now, on the flip side, Georgia's also coming off of a bye, and that's a monster you don't necessarily want to deal with. Brock Bowers is out. Everybody's going to be doubting them. I expect for Oscar Delp and Lawson Lucky to be able to step up at the tight end position, but let's face it, They are not Brock Bowers at the end of the day. So you're going to be looking to the outside a lot more, especially with the lack of depth at running back. So look for Robert Thomas, Marcus Rosemy, Jack Saint, a couple of guys to make an impact in this game. And also Dominic Lovett is a guy who has not made an impact on this Georgia team at all this year. Maybe he makes an impact in this game. I'm going to go with Georgia to win. I'm going to give them the slight nod with the cover, not by much, 34-17. That's what I'm going to pick Georgia to do, but I would not be surprised if Florida is competitive. And dare I say, I wouldn't be surprised if Florida wins if Georgia's same struggles continue to rear their ugly head without Brock Bowers being that outpitch that Joel Klatt has been talking about all week. This, to me, is a top 10 matchup. Now, I was wrong about Utah. I don't know why I doubted Utah. Very stupid of me to doubt Utah. I was not impressed with them. Still, not overly impressed by them, but they get the job done. Jonah Ellis is one of the most productive pass rushers in America. And you look at Oregon and what they have with the balanced attack with Bo Nix and Bucky Irving. I think this matches up very, very well. Strength on strength, weakness on weakness. And when I look at something like that, Oregon's weakness of their defense is a lot stronger than the weakness that Utah has on offense. But I'm hearing murmurs that maybe Cam Rising will be back for this game. I'm not sure what's going on when it comes to his status, but one thing's for sure. I do know this. Oregon has more talent, and Oregon has less questions on their defense than Utah has on their offense. I like this matchup with Oregon, and I know it's tough to go in the Rice-Eccles. They have not lost there since 2020 when there were no fans. They were undefeated there in 21, undefeated there in 22, and so far they're undefeated here. But I think this Oregon team is built different. I think they're super experienced. I think they're very well coached. I'm going to take Oregon with their backs against the wall still after that one loss to be able to go on the road and do the unthinkable and win at Utah in Rice-Eccles Stadium, be the first team to do so since USC in 2020. Give me Oregon to win this game by a score of 27-20. I think that the over-under and the spread is right around on the money, so give me that, and we're going to move on from that game. Duke in Louisville. Do not expect Riley Leonard to play. Personally, I do not expect that. And I also expect for this Louisville defense to be completely underrated. They have been very good. In fact, a road game against NC State, I believe it was on a Friday night, maybe Thursday night. It was a weekday night. Their defense was the reason why they won that game. Now, albeit NC State has looked pretty bad since then. Last week, standing alone as really bad for NC State. But nonetheless, when the offense wasn't clicking, their defense was able to get it done. But that offense cannot go through the cold spurts that they do and rely on the big plays like they do, because Duke is not going to allow those. So I kind of like the under in this game. I like Louisville to win, mainly because Riley Leonard is out. I don't know how Duke scores. I'm going to take Louisville to win 17-10. I'm going to go very low scoring here, 17-10. I don't think Louisville's going to be able to light it up on offense. But, hey, if they get above 20, I don't think Duke's going to be able to match that with the backup quarterback in. So without Riley Leonard, it's cooked for Duke. I'm going Louisville. Even though I have them ranked below, I'm going to go with the Cardinals here. All right, number 23, Tennessee is on the road at Kentucky. And Tennessee, the last couple of years, has had Kentucky's number. Last year, beating them 44-6. And a big time performance by that defense. And then also Tennessee's offense lighting up Kentucky in that game as well. I cannot imagine that there is a path for victory for Kentucky that doesn't result in Ray Davis going absolutely off the way that Montrell Johnson and Trevor Etienne did for the Florida Gators in the game against Tennessee. The road atmosphere also cannot get to Tennessee, and playing Alabama last week, cannot let you lose twice, essentially. After losing that emotional game in the second half of that game against Alabama, I think Tennessee needs to come back. I think they need to bounce back. And this Kentucky team is not bad. They're not bad at all. They're somebody that you shouldn't sleep on. If Ray Davis gets loose and cooks, that's Kentucky's path to victory. I don't think he's going to be able to do enough. I also do not have confidence in this offense with Devin Leary. I'm going to go with Tennessee to win this ball game by a score of 27-17. I think Tennessee gets it done in pretty controlling fashion as well. Colorado's on the road at UCLA in a big-time game for the Buffaloes off of a bye after the last time we saw the Buffaloes. They blew a big lead. They were up 29-0 against Stanford, but the wheels fell off. I think they've regrouped, and I think they're going to be better for the wear of this. I think they're going to cover 17. I think UCLA is a little bit overrated. Their defense, though, is really good. But if this offense for Colorado can get a move on, one thing's for sure, they're going to be competitive in this game. Now, I'm going to take Colorado to win, much to the chagrin of many people who last time we saw them, they gave up a massive comeback loss against Stanford in double overtime. But keep in mind, that was 15 days prior to this game. They've had a bye week since then, and that was on a Friday night. I'm going with Colorado with the preparation. I trust Sean Lewis. I trust Deion Sanders. I think that offense is going to cook 41-31. I'm going with the Buffaloes to beat the UCLA Bruins in the true freshman quarterback in Dante Moore. Finally, we have Oregon State on the road at Arizona. I think Arizona is a really good team that should be 6-1, and with one loss in conference, that one loss overall being Washington. So to me, this is a top 25 team that's going up against a secondary that is very, very susceptible. And ever since Noah Fafita has taken over, this Arizona team has absolutely lit up Washington for a 44-6 victory on the road in the Palouse against Washington State. Pardon me. I think I said Washington there, versus an Oregon State team that has kind of limped to this point. They lost to Washington State, and I am not playing transitive property when I'm picking Arizona here, because you guys see that that's where I'm going with this. I'm playing matchup property, okay? This Oregon State secondary has struggled all year. Nobody's been able to run the ball, but I do believe that being able to throw the ball the way that Arizona can with Jacob Cowing and McMillan on the outside, I think that these guys with Arizona are going to be able to open up the run game with the ability to pass. I think Arizona wins this ball game outright. I'm taking the Arizona Wildcats to win in a little bit of a shootout by a score of 45-42. They survive and win at home against the Oregon State Beavers, who I think has a pretty good, solid, balanced offense, and I still think they're a solid team. I just think Arizona should be a 6-1 football team right now, and if they were 6-1, they'd be ranked. Let's be real. They'd be ranked in the top 20 if they were 6-1 right now. I think this Arizona team is good. I think that they're dangerous. I think that they win. Walk that line is here. We got Oklahoma and Kansas. I'm taking the under here. I forget what I said the final score was going to be. But going back to that, I do think that this Oklahoma defense has been playing a whole lot better, and this Kansas team is also more run-oriented when it comes to Jason Bean being in the game. When they're more run-oriented, that means they're going to be running a little bit more clock. But I also think that we've seen a tendency for Oklahoma's offenses to kind of sputter in recent weeks. I mean, they even struggled against UCF, but you go back to the Cincinnati game, they sputtered in that one, and they've overlooked some of these opponents and have not put up a bunch of points. So I'm going to start with the under 66 in this game. Kansas State minus 17.5. I think they're going to blow out Houston by like 30 plus. I think that Houston put everything into beating their in-state foe in Texas last week, that they're not ready for Kansas State in the Little Apple. At that, I think Kansas State has been gearing up for a time to go on the run in the Big 12, and nobody's talking about K-State. K-State, off of that Oklahoma State loss, looked dominant against TCU. I think that Kansas State's going to get it done. West Virginia +7. I don't know if they're going to win that game against why am I drawing a blank on who they play? I got to get up who they play, because that's embarrassing of me to forget when I took them. But I had a feeling that they would win maybe, but at the very least cover. Where are they? Okay. This is how you know that this is not scripted, by the way. They're playing at UCF, speaking of the devil. West Virginia this season has allowed a little bit on the ground, of course, but they've been able to run the ball, and their offense has had some success, and their secondary has been really good. If they can force a couple of turnovers, and I think that's very likely for them, I think they could beat the UCF Knights in this Gus Bus pretty easily, especially off of the high that we got off of UCF last week being competitive with Oklahoma. but then you also have a letdown because you were almost there. I think that we overreact to West Virginia losing last week to Oklahoma State and then UCF being competitive with Oklahoma. Memphis, -7. I think this is another overreaction, specifically North Texas being as competitive as they were against Tulane. Tulane played a terrible game. I think Memphis is going to be able to light up that North Texas defense for half 100 points. I think Memphis wins by more than 7. Nebraska, -2.5 against Purdue. I think that they're turning over a new leaf. Specifically, that defense has been looking outstanding. I think they're going to shut down Purdue's offense yet again. I think that Nebraska gets another big dub in their notch, and they're going to be one game closer to bowl eligibility. People are talking about that now. USC -10.5. It looks like Lincoln Riley is going to be absent for that game. They're trying to get Cliff Kingsbury to have an exemption to be an on-the-field coach officially, even though he's been on the field, whatever. And I don't even know who the interim coach is going to be, but I think this USC offense, led by Caleb Williams, an experienced quarterback, is going to tear it up against Cal. And I think that defense is going to force a couple of turnovers, and they win by at least 14. Washington -26.5. I think we're looking at a complete beatdown of Stanford here. You could take the over 43.5 points if you want with the Washington Huskies. But the fact of the matter is this: Washington last week had an embarrassingly bad offensive performance on the road, or at home, against Arizona State. Not a single offensive touchdown, 2 interceptions for Michael Penix Jr. I expect like 5 touchdowns by Michael Penix Jr. in this game passing the ball. I expect for Washington to absolutely blow out Stanford by like 35 plus. This is going to be a dominant victory for the Huskies. Colorado +17. I already talked about it. I think Colorado is going to win the game outright, let alone cover 17. North Carolina -12. I think they have a big bounce back game against Georgia Tech. They're on the road at Georgia Tech, who has been good at some points, beat Miami on the road, but also bad at other points. I think we get a bad Georgia Tech version this week. North Carolina gets a big dub there. Arizona +3 against Oregon State. Hey, Arizona, if you're going to lose that game, at least lose by a field goal or less. So that way we get the push or the cover. And I'm hoping for your guys' sakes, if you guys decide to listen and take this at Arizona +3, make sure to try to wait to see if you can get it at +3.5. UNLV went up 1.5 points here. UNLV +9. It went up right before the stream. I'm taking UNLV +9. This offense has been absolutely unstoppable, and Fresno State's defense has not been anything to write home about. Fresno State is a really good team. I think they win this game very, very close, though. I think it's within one possession. I was going to take it at +7.5. I'm taking it at +9 all day. And then finally, it's too late to play this. I made a TikTok about this earlier. Georgia State -1 right now. They're down by 3, and Georgia Southern's driving, so we might be off to a rough start. I saved this for last because, and there's my top 25 there. I saved this for last because you can't play it. So there's my top 25 as we close things out there here in week 9, just to give you one last quick glance if you didn't see the top 25 scrolling at the bottom of your screen. All right, thank you guys for tuning in. I really appreciate it. Make sure you guys like and subscribe, and I hope you guys enjoy your week of college football. We'll see you guys on Sunday.